Are you into comics? I mean, seriously into all things comics? Well, lucky you need to check out Take a Knee for Marvel vs. DC, where Regular Scott, Ozzy Killmonger, and V's discuss characters, movies, series, books, fan polls, and more. And you never know who may show up for an open mic. Just some blurs going deep and having fun. Take a Knee for Marvel vs. DC. New episode every Sunday, brought to you by the Defy Podcast Network.
The following podcast is being brought to you by the Defy Life Podcast Network.
Please listen carefully. Please listen carefully. Please listen carefully.
The school system is actually teaching people to be poor. The school system will never teach you about money. The school system was designed to teach you to be an employee or a doctor or a lawyer, a specialist, but never about money. My father was the head of education, PhD, all that stuff. I go home and ask him, said, why don't we learn about money in school? And he looked at me and says, because the government doesn't let us teach that subject. The government tells us what we can teach and what we can't teach. And I thought that was strange. And I said, but aren't we going to school to learn about money? He says, no, your job is to get a job. Poverty is passed on. It's taught in your families. And middle class is taught in families. And so the people right now who are sitting at home, who are struggling financially or worried about money or unhappy, they may be making a lot of money, but unhappy with what they're doing, it was probably taught to you. You know, your superego was taught, get a job, work hard, or you'll never be rich, or the rich are evil, or whatever.
And until you change your mindset,
Correct.
Money won't help you, right?
Correct.
And we see that with people that win the lottery, people that make more money, they still have the same problem.
Right.
Because they have that poor man's soul.
Correct. If you're poor, you'll always be poor.
That's really hard for people to understand.
Yeah, the money will disappear that fast. Just like most pro athletes, they make millions of dollars, and but 65% are bankrupt 5 years later. It's because they come from poor families. Now you tell them that, they get very angry at you. It's not, it's the rich fault. It's you guys ripped me off, and government ripped me off. But unfortunately, what Mr. Lipton was saying, it's passed down genetically. The moment I pay you, you think like an employee. That's the trap. Entrepreneurs work for free. The moment you accept a paycheck, your brain goes dead. As long as you're hungry, you'll think. You see people say, well, why don't you give the poor money? So the only problem with that is it just creates more poor people.
Give a man a fish, he fishes for the day, or eats for the day.
Yeah, you give a man a fish, you get a lot of people who want more fish, But you teach them to fish.
But you are the Robin Hood of knowledge, because I see you giving this knowledge out, and do the rich people cringe and say, don't tell them that, Robin?
Yes. Don't tell people what you know.
Right.
Keep them poor. Poor will always be amongst us, because it starts up here. It's in their words, and the words become flesh. When they say, I can't afford it, or I can't do that, they go down. They become what they say. And I meet so many people, I can't afford it. You think I'm made of money? My PhD dad, he says, what do you think I am, made of money? I can't afford that. And my rich dad would say, that's why he's poor. Poor people say, I can't afford it, I can't do that, I don't have time. Because it's an escape. It's an escape. You know what I mean? It's easy to say, I can't afford it. Oh, I'm too tired. Oh, I can't go to the gym. When you could go to the gym, but no, I can't. Truth is, I'm just too lazy to go to the gym.
And you play it safe, and you don't introduce new risks into your life. And so
I have job security.
Right. And your rich dad used to say what instead of, I can't afford it?
How can I afford it? How can I do that? What would it take? Or why should I do that? A question opens the mind, a statement closes the mind. See, when you say, I can't afford it, your mind shuts down, and you become what you say. People say, well, money is not that important to me. Then if money is not that important to you, money is not important to you. You know what I mean? I don't care about money. The money doesn't care about you. The word does become flesh. Or I'll never be rich. Or the favorite one is the rich are greedy. It's the poor that are greedy. If you think about it, because to be rich, you have to give something. You have to. I have to produce books and games, and I purchase real estate. I provide housing, provide jobs, and all that. That's why I'm rich. But greedy people produce nothing. Oh no, it's the rich that are greedy. And I'm going, hey, sports fans, you point a finger forward, 3 are pointing backwards. And so, as we know, there's a big attitude problem against the rich today. We all have fear. To be truthful, we all have fear. It's just how you deal with it. Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge, but knowledge empowers imagination. And what most people lack is real business knowledge, like accounting, like debt, like taxes. You got to know that stuff, but they don't teach it in school to anybody. People who are afraid of making mistakes, like they teach in school, they don't ever grow. Because spirituality is there's good and there's bad, there's right and there's wrong, there's up and there's down. Most people only want to be right, they only want to be positive. Well, you can't have that. That's not reality. Every time I failed, it was like, good. It's okay, what have I learned? And the average person, the reason they're poor is they haven't failed. They play it so safe. They haven't made any mistakes like they taught in school. That means they don't learn anything. That's why the school system's actually fundamentally corrupt. It's anti-education. And I think what most people do is they let their parents or their friends talk them out of life. So afraid of failing. But failing is how we succeed. Our schools punish you for making mistakes. That's why we have so many people who are so afraid of admitting they make mistakes or afraid of failing.
Hello, Hotep. This is Brother Khemmett coming at you with another episode of Blaquegumbo on the Defy Life Podcast Network. You can reach me at blaque@gmail.com. That's blaquegumbo@gmail.com. You guys just got finished listening to Robert Kiyosaki. He's the author of a book called, this great book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which this book gives you a super wonderful breakdown on what exactly financial literacy is and how to combat financial illiteracy. This is part 2 of the 10-part series on the matrix and how we can learn to combat financial literacy. The matrix is the primary reason for this horrible dis-ease called financial illiteracy. Now is the time to break out of the matrix and look at real reality and not the illusion the matrix projected on and out to us. This is the main reason financial literacy will be so important for all to know, for us to be able to combat this new economy that's right around the corner. Here are a few simple rules to getting started on your financial literacy path to freedom. 1. Start by reading books on financial literacy, listening to audios, or going to podcasts. Here are a few books just off the top of my head. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Richest Man in Babylon, The Millionaire Next Door, Think and Grow Rich, Your Money, Your Life, The Automatic Millionaire, Who Moved My Cheese. And this is one I thought was one of the great ones. This is a local brother here out of Columbia, South Carolina. His name is Darryl Balls, and he wrote a book called One Paycheck at a Time. And I think everybody needs to check that book out. It gives you a lot of information, especially if you're working. This book will be perfect for you. Whether you want to be a millionaire or not, the financial books, the financial information will help to reprogram your brain to think differently about money and money management. Remember, the Matrix has been running a program that's been controlling us to make us think a certain way. We want to break out of that. Always remember, the biggest investment that one can make is the investment into oneself. I'm going to say that again. The biggest investment that one can make is the investment into themselves. Because when you invest into your education, you invest into your financial education or academic education, you empower and you enrich yourself. It's for you. Number 2, we have to enact the rule called pay yourself. When you work for income, you need to pay yourself first before you pay anything or anybody else. Only you will be able to determine how much that is. It may be 10% of your monthly income. It could be 5%, 2%. You have to determine that. You may have to make some sacrifices because this is money that you need to set aside. And only you will be able to determine that. But before you pay anybody else, you need to pay yourself first. You need to set it aside for investing. That money need to be set aside for paying off debt or for emergencies. Number 3, you also need to save at least 3 to 6 months worth of your monthly expenses. You need to put that away in case of job loss, case of illness, or a super great investment opportunity open up and you're able to take advantage of. Always remember there's 3 major forms of income. It's called passive. Passive income is money as royalties or people who own rental property. Dividend income is people who are paper assets, people who own stocks and bonds. And earned income is the hardest income to come by, and it's also taxed at the highest rate. So one of my key rules is to take earned income, not my key rule, but the financial literacy key rule, is to take earned income and turn it into passive and dividend income. And the reason you want to do that is because earned income is taxed the highest, as passive and dividend income is taxed at a much lower rate. Most of us only know about earned income. Well, over the course of this 10-part series on financial literacy and illiteracy, you will see how knowing the rules of finance will make a wonderful impact on our lives. Once you master them, we have to learn how to make money while we're asleep. We have to learn how to make money while we're doing other things than besides physically just working for it. We're in a new day. This is a new paradigm. So we're giving this information is being provided because we want to see changes in people's lives. We want to break the bonds of financial illiteracy, and we want to turn it into financial literacy. We have all this other information. We have all the academic information is everywhere. We need to have financial literacy information blasted everywhere. And this is one of my passions. And thank you all. And till the next part.
Welcome to the Anything, Everything, and Nothing podcast with Lynn and Kim. Join us as we discuss the latest in everything from entertainment and current events to the craziness that is our real life.
Let's laugh, let's live, let's talk about it. New episode every Tuesday on the Defy Life Podcast Network. And remember, if you're not defying life, then what are you doing? Lynn and Kim.